This is gonna hurt. It's time for the Suffering Podcast.
We all want to be heard, even if we're not sure others want to listen. Our opinions may resonate with another or make them turn away. The receipt of our perspectives is a gamble that you're willing to take. That spark of inspiration, if cultivated properly, can be put on display for the world to hear or see. Our skill at delivery becomes worked over time until we become effective, attempting to turn the worthwhile message into a digestible product. Once the feeling of making progress settles deep in your soul, the time building that mission and message becomes captivating. You are propelled and destined to continue because the impact outweighs the struggle and everything becomes aligned. I'm Kevin Donaldson, always here with Mike Felice, and welcome to the Suffering Podcast. If you're a fan of overcoming adversity and overcoming suffering, then we're for you, because that's what we do here, and that's the stories that we highlight. So do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, please comment, ring the bell so you can get notified of all of our new content, and now you can join. And of course, follow us on all social media so you can find out what we're up to. Tonight, we have a returning guest, one of my very good friends, Detective Tom Smith of the Gold Shield Show. And tonight, we're going to talk about the suffering of podcasting, because I saw you from very early on, and I think I want everybody to know that it's a lot more than lights, camera, action.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So thanks for coming back, Tom.
No, thanks for having me. Love it.
What was the episode that you were, how long ago was it that we had you in here?
Oh, early. It was our first season, June, July.
But it was like 2023.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been a while.
Oh, yeah.
So you were under season 3. So if you want to go watch Tom's story, because we'll give a brief recap of your journey, but I want to really get into the podcasting. But before we get into anything, let's throw a big shout out to our marquee sponsor. That's Toyota of Hackensack. We don't trust anybody as retired police, and we certainly don't trust anybody as podcasters, but we do trust Toyota of Hackensack. So go to toyotahackensack.com and let them find you a car. So Tom, the more things change, the more they stay the same. Still take that social media question. This one comes from user, and there's a bunch of numbers afterwards that I am not wearing my glasses, so I can't even see. But I thought it was an interesting question. You have a public persona, and you also have a private persona. Mm-hmm. I know you privately, and the people who watch your show know you publicly. So what do you think people don't understand about you?
What they don't understand, I think, is how involved with my family I am. You know, they see one part of it, it's lights, always on camera, always on social media, always something. But if I'm not doing that, all I'm with is my family and my kids, doing something with them. Outside, take a walk, go over to my daughter's house, watch a ball game. Sports is huge with us, big sports family. So something's on TV, we're all watching it. We're all getting together and watching it. And
you're a Giants fan, aren't you?
I am.
Thank you for Saquon. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, that was bad.
Yeah, well, listen, I actually feel I have empathy now and sympathy for Giants fans, but I'm very happy with them. I used to be like okay with the Jets, but now I'm okay with the Giants too, because you gave us a great gift.
Yeah, we're the gift that keeps giving, for sure.
But I think Saquon found a home, so I do appreciate that. Yeah, so there's a lot of work that goes into these shows, and we're going to get into that stuff. So making sure that you remember that there's people behind you. That's a big thing.
Yeah, that is. And you know, in my world, and I've said it forever, you know, you don't have your family, nothing's working. You know, it doesn't work, because the success you might have with your show, you have to share. You know, so your family sees the success you're having, makes it all better.
There was a short time within the show where I would hold a lot of stuff back from the audience. I'm like, yeah, I don't want to let them know too personally. And there's stupid things, like I never wear glasses on camera, but there are pictures of me, plenty of pictures with glasses. And I always felt like it's the Clark Kent syndrome, right? Nobody understands that it's Superman as long as he's wearing glasses, even though they got the same haircut, talk the same, same build. So I never wear my glasses on camera, but I really can't see without them. But that's not even the most important thing. So I hid a lot of my personal problems, issues from the audience. And I don't know, one day, I'm going to say a couple years ago, it dawned on me I can't ask you to sit here. I can't ask anybody to sit in front of me and and bare their soul to me if I wasn't willing to do the same thing. So you'll see me go on social media, and I usually tell you pretty much what's going on. Like it's not all good. There's a reason for that though. Just because I talk about it doesn't mean I know how to do it. You know,
Right.
How many friends do you have that give you the best friend advice, but they don't follow that advice themselves?
Sure.
You know, I have plenty of those people where, you know, if I'm doing something that's a little messed up, they'll call me up and they'll say, "Hey, man, don't do that." Meanwhile, they're doing it, and I could tell them I will give them the same advice, but I can't take my own advice.
Right.
So, if there's one thing people don't understand about me is I work very hard because I'm not a very open person. I work very hard at being a little bit vulnerable. There's some stuff that I really don't let out, but there's most of it is pretty much out there. And that's by design.
Yeah.
It really is by design. So user, a bunch of numbers. Thank you for sending that question in. Keep sending in your questions and we will try to get them on the air. So Tom, why don't you give everybody a little recap, a little 5-minute bibliography on your journey to where you are now?
30 years in the NYPD. It was what I always wanted to do in life. My dad was my hero. He was everything I wanted to be, wanted to follow in his footsteps, did that, became a detective.
Got a shield?
Got his shield number, which was the best day on the job. Shared that with him for sure. And then, worked really hard to get what I always wanted. I had a game plan of what I wanted to do, where I wanted to do it. So it was just a matter of working hard and getting in narcotics and getting a plainclothes unit, getting my shield. And I did have one plan that I always wanted to do was be a homicide detective. That was all I wanted to be growing up. Once I started the job.
Big Dennis Franz fan?
Dennis Franz was great. Starsky and Hutch was my thing. That was
so when I was a kid, I'm going to tell you a story. I was a kid. Starsky and Hutch came out with a sneaker, and it was red and white like the Torino.
Uh-huh.
And I got these things. And my parents didn't have money. So for me to get these shoes, it was a pretty big deal. I don't even know what they cost. They were the ugliest goddamn shoes on the planet. But for some reason, when I put these shoes on, I could swear that it was going to make me climb better. I was a fat kid. I was not a climber. I go up a tree. I get about 3 feet up. I fall off of it. And I was like, well, these things are broken.
It's the shoes' fault.
Why I thought they would make me climb, I have no idea.
See, it's funny you brought the sneakers up because I was a Starsky fan, so I would buy the blue and white Adidas shoes. Anytime I needed sneakers, that's what I bought.
Did you also have the wave?
No, that I didn't have. A little bit, but more the sneakers, the blue windbreaker.
Well, you at least had to have a good wig guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, you had a good wig guy.
And I still to this day want the car.
I that was one of the remakes. When they remade the movie with Ben Stiller and Owen Wilson, I actually enjoyed, and my kids like that movie. And I tell them all the time, I'm like, yeah, I remember when this was like a real show.
Oh, yeah.
And it was a real drama. Meanwhile, they're getting in 7 shootings a day and going right back to work.
Right.
Like going in the captain's office and getting yelled at for shooting somebody.
Right.
Well, and you were successful. We've met many people through you. Angel Masonette, listen, he's got a fantastic story. And I was just talking about him with somebody today.
Yeah.
So that last case that he solved with Bin Laden, it was Bin Laden's last attack or attempted attack in the U.S. that he foiled.
Yep.
And somebody brought that up. I'm like, oh, yeah, I know the case agent on the JTTF who did that. So it was pretty interesting.
Yep.
But I have seen your journey from the beginning with Gold Shield Show. We got connected through Amanda Coleman.
Yes, we did.
How did you meet Amanda?
Through on LinkedIn.
Oh, yeah?
She just hit me up one day on LinkedIn. Hey, I saw what you're doing. Just the way Amanda is. We talked, we spoke, we did a kind of FaceTime call. And then she brought you up, said, hey, you have to meet Kevin Donaldson. Okay. And then we connected. We started the show in January. I think me and you spoke in March or April. Pretty early on. And here we are, and I say it all the time, Kev, the best part about doing this podcast and doing Gold Shields is the people that we meet, because so many just click. You meet them, you talk to them for a little while, and it just clicks, and it becomes not a just working relationship, but a personal relationship going, on. And that's what me and you had immediately.
So it's 200. This will be episode 217 or 218, one of those. So out of those, take away the double shows, it's 200 guests. And I always say that I probably keep in contact with about 90%. And the ones I don't keep in contact with, it's not because I don't like them. It's just we lost contact. So my family has grown. Yeah. And I might not know, if somebody asks me a question, I might not know the answer, but I guarantee you out of those 200 people, I or somebody they know knows the answer. But I saw, so we got on the phone and we talked. And my main thing is there were some people early on that helped me out with my show. Not all of them with the best intentions. Not all of them with the best intentions. But I wanted to make sure that whatever mistakes I made weren't in vain. That I can give those mistakes to somebody else and say, hey, watch out for this because this could happen. And I think that's the reason why I gravitated to you, because I saw that you had a good concept, you had a good platform, and something that was really valuable that could move forward. But do you remember what I said after I spoke with you and told you all this stuff? Do you remember what I said to you?
Oh, you said a lot.
No, there was one piece of advice. You know, I said my advice isn't free. All right, my advice isn't free. It comes with debit. All I want you to do is to reach out to another podcaster who's just starting out, who you see potential in, who you can gel with, and give that same information to them. Because in this world, this crazy world we live in, you make it past 7 episodes, you're in the top 80%.
Oh yeah, you know, you had told me the conversation we had, Kev, to this day is influential on the show and me. And I don't just say it; I've said this to you before, not just because I'm on your show and in front of you. But the information...
Well, I pay you to do that.
Yeah, of course. We'll figure that out later.
Yeah.
The information you gave me about how to do this from someone who had no idea what we were doing. You know, we had an idea. Who knows if it was ever going to work? And the information and what you gave me of be yourself, enjoy what you're doing, get a message to others that people can gravitate to, and the cross promotion. That was your big thing.
Listen.
Yeah. And that was your big thing. And I stick to that every day when I'm posting, when people are emailing me about, hey, can you do this? Can you do that? I remember the conversation we had, and it's invaluable. You know, when you have someone like that with your experience, when you're starting off on this journey of hopefully being successful, there's no price tag to that.
I'm sure there was plenty of new officers when you got on that you took under your wing, you mentored. You showed them the ropes in a way that the NYPD maybe can't show you the ropes. It's not in the manual. It's nothing in the syllabus. It's nothing in the FTO program. But you saw something in them, and you wanted to make sure that you veered them on the right path. A lot of that comes from the bad mistakes that you made. I took it one step further in here because I realized very early on that we are not fighting for viewers. No. We're not fighting for viewers. There's plenty of people out there. They have all the choice in the world, and there's enough time for everybody. Mike and I, we reached out to this female officer who was shot. Very well-known case in here. And first she said she wanted to come on, and then she stopped. She says, "No, I don't want to come on because I have my own show." And I'm thinking to myself, Mike and I were talking about it, and like, what are you talking about? You could get some of our listeners, and I'll get some of your listeners, and everybody wins. What are you doing? What are you doing? So it never made any sense to me.
Yeah, I never get that. I mean, people ask me, thankfully, you know, I've been on a ton of other shows. You asked me to go on, and it half fits what I can talk about or describe, whether it's my career or how to put a show together, how to get whatever it might be. I'm on. You know, I do show after show after show, you know, just on topics I either know or I'm familiar with or whatever, because like you just said, getting out there is the biggest thing. Getting out there is the most important thing, that someone else's group or followers will hear that, go, oh, wow, that's kind of cool. You know, and then all of a sudden you check your numbers or whatever, and after appearing somewhere, you know, you get 3 or 4 new followers or subscribers, and that's because of what you just did.
There was one other show I just started, they popped up on my feed, like by random, very, very small show somewhere in outside St. Louis. It's called 1078 Project. So I reached out to the guy, and it was after it was probably 6-8 months after you. And I said, hey, listen, I just like what you're doing. Let me know if you need any help with anything. And sure enough, the guy did. And I think I believe he's still going. Good guy. Listen, good guy. He's got a great message. 1078 is Officer Down in wherever their area is. But I think that's important that we need to all work together, knowing that we're not fighting. This isn't NBC and ABC. No. We're not fighting for this, but we're fighting for subscribers. We're all fighting for subscribers, but they can subscribe to yours and they can subscribe to mine.
Absolutely right. And you had said that. I remember one of the things you said, it's a big sandbox.
Yep.
There's enough sand in there for everybody. And like you just said, and the world of podcasts, Kev, and you just nailed it with, you can do multiple things. One day you could wake up and be, hey, I want to hear about this. Cool. Subscribe to that. Tomorrow it's something else that's out there. Subscribe to that. So that's what, the big sandbox means.
So when you first, how did this concept come up that you wanted to start a podcast?
I was listening to a podcast, going to work one day, and I just said, you know what? Wonder if we can pull this off. I called Dan, my partner, and I said, hey, I got an idea. Why don't we do a podcast? And he kind of went, all right, great idea. What are we doing? What's it going to be on? And we took our time. The good thing about, I think, what we did with Gold Shields is we didn't rush into it. We took about a month and a half, almost 2 months of listening to other shows, reading about other shows. What did we want to do? And I think we did
how to publish, microphones, all this.
All that. I mean, stuff, everything. Yeah. Because we if we're going to do it, we're going to do it right. And I think we did more checking and more research on what we didn't want to do. We didn't want to be the two cops who just went, hey, remember when we did this back in 1990? We didn't want to do that. So. No,
you bounce your experience off of whatever guest you have.
Right. And we said, you know what? At the time, we kind of reverted back to the crap that was going on in law enforcement with the defund, with all that, which led to, bad things being said about the military and all that. And we said, there's so many good stories out there and incredible investigations that were done. Let's talk about that. Let's give people, like we say all the time on the show, a backstage pass into a case they may know about, but not really know about. Everyone sees the bad guy get thrown in a car after the perp walk and he's taken to court.
And that's 1% of the investigation.
1%. They have no idea that detective hasn't been home in a week, hasn't slept for 3 days, chased this guy to 4 different states and got him. And those are the stories we wanted to get out.
Now, here's the big question. Here's the $1 million question right here.
Hold on.
You have a loving wife at home. You're retired, thinking life's going to get easy. And then you come to her with this harebrained idea. And it is, to our spouses, this is absolutely a harebrained idea.
Yeah.
I went through this. And so tell me that conversation.
I came home because the conversation I just told you with Dan was while I was at work. Yeah. So I came home and said, hey, I want to run something by you.
Was it early on in the investigative process of how to do a show?
Oh, yeah. It was, early.
You're ahead of the curve. I didn't tell my wife until a week. I didn't even tell her. She overheard a conversation. Because I started investigating August, and I didn't air my first show because I was alone. I was embarrassed. I was like, who the hell's going to want to listen to me? What if it sucks? I don't want everybody to know.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And I didn't start my first episode until December.
Okay. So. We started to kind of check things out. I think it was around October. So we took November, December, and looked at it. So I said, hey, we got an idea. Dan and I are thinking about doing a podcast. And like you just said, you kind of get that, Alice used to look at Ralph Cramden, when he came up with an idea, really?
Yeah.
And then, talked about it more, explained what we want to do, and then the typical question was okay, what do you got to do? What do you have to do? And we didn't know, all right, we got a laptop, get a $20 microphone, and a set of headphones and
right. You had I remember in the beginning you had the air traffic controller once. Yeah.
And it's all, it's all right. Let me try this. Let me try that. And, she was supportive of it. She said, hey, if you can do it, go ahead, give it a shot. Let's see where it goes. And the story of where it started is probably the funniest part of Gold Shields because and there's many people who have the same story. We had 7 shows lined up. That was it. We had no idea what number 8 was going to be.
I was one at a time.
Oh,
I
yeah.
swear to God, I was one at a time because I didn't know.
And we had no idea. We got to like 3 or 4 and I started to get nervous. Like, oh my God, this isn't going to be good. And then you get a phone call. Hey, I got this guest who should be on. He'd be great for your show. Okay. And then it just went and went and went. But I started doing the show with an old laptop and a $20 mic in my closet. Because all you read is...
Are you telling me that you came out of the closet?
I came out of the closet for Gold Shields. Yep.
Okay. Hey,
Gold Shields got me out of the closet. Well, it got me in the closet.
No judgment here.
And then it, at some point got out.
But has there ever come a time, because this is a very consuming lifestyle that you're leading. You know that now, and I think I told you that. I said, you, be careful.
Oh yeah.
Be careful, because this can be all consuming. At some point, has your wife ever said, "Hey, Tom, you're neglecting your family a little bit"?
It's not constant. I shouldn't say it that way. She's not constantly on me, but there's times that you just go, what are you doing now? And because here's the reason she says that. A, we've been together for 35 years. So she knows my DNA. She knows how I'm wired. I will, on numerous nights, okay, nothing's going on tonight. Sit on the couch, put a ball game on, and if it pops in my head, I'll be right back and run upstairs to the computer, do something. And, she just looks at me. She's like, really? I'm like, I have to get out of me. I got to put it somewhere, and then I'll deal with it later. But she's used to that because that's how I was when I worked.
Well, it's really bothering them if during an argument it comes out.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Yeah, because I'm sure. Listen, I don't even know. So, Ange, he didn't bitch about you. I know because I get it. I get it, and I understand because it takes up a lot of time. I'm in my quiet area is the garage. It's everybody's inside. I'm in the garage. I got heaters on there, and I'm working on a computer. And she knows that okay, I'm doing my stuff out there. But I try to do it when it's off hours. Everybody, I don't sleep, so I'll go out there and do it. But inevitably, there'll be an argument that pops up and says, "Well, you're always doing your show."
Yep.
Or orders this, right? So my wife needed a flyer made up. And she knows I do all social media and stuff. She'll say, "Can you make me a flyer?" Okay, well, tell me what's on it. I don't know. Well, she goes, "Well, you can do it in like 5 minutes. I see what you put up on social media." I said, "Yeah, but I know what I'm putting up there. Like, I know what I'm going to create.
Right.
I have content.
Yep.
You're just telling me to make it up out of the ether." And that turns into it.
But you know what? With all that being said, when we drop a show, she listens to it that day on the way to work.
Yeah.
The support, hey, who do you got tonight? Who do you got? Who's coming up? She became, it's funny, as much as everyone looked at it in the beginning of, all right, you really going to do this? Is this going to work? To becoming part of it and liking the success of it and being part of the success. I mean, she's so proud of, oh, you're going on this show. Me now where we are with the show, being on Nancy Grace or being on Newsmax or whatever. And that's all because of the show. That's not, I didn't put a billboard up somewhere, that people saw and called me. Everything I'm doing now is because of the show. And she's
leads
proud
to
of that.
Opportunity.
Oh God.
And one of the things I said to you, I said, if you're in this for the money, get out now.
Right,
Run.
Yep.
Run, because it's going to cost you money.
Yes.
But the dividends do pay. Like I go out and I do a lot of speaking. Okay. And some of those speaking engagements are paid speaking engagements. And that's where the money comes. And now, so with those things coming in, my wife is a lot more open-minded to me doing these things, being gone for 3-4 days. She's just used to it. Like I was running out of the house today and she goes, "Who do you have on tonight?" And I said, "Tom Smith." And she goes, "That's a fake answer." That's a fake answer. So nobody's name's Tom Smith. I'm like, well, actually, no, his name's Tom Smith.
Yeah, and I get that.
Yeah. But see, when I started, it's very different because when I started out, I didn't tell nobody, which is not the right thing to do. I didn't tell nobody because I was afraid. I really was afraid because what if I was afraid that I was going to have a microphone in front of me and I was going to be that 5-year-old kid who gets a walkie-talkie. Remember when you first walkie-talkie got?
Absolutely.
It's hello, and you get hello, hi, and it's just it's a nothing conversation. Right. And I was so afraid of that, and I didn't want anybody to hear that. And when people finally started finding out, it was a weird experience.
Oh, it is. You know, I spent 30 years of people, you know, avoiding telling people who I was or what I did, especially what you did. You know, you didn't put it out there, you know, hey, I'm doing this in this other country. You know, I didn't do that. Now that's all done. And I called you actually. I think I texted you the first time
you got
I
recognized.
was in the gym.
Yep.
And because you told me your story about that.
Which was in the gym.
Right, which was in the gym. So that's why I laughed when I was in the gym one morning and some guy came up. He goes, hey, now again, police things pop up right away first.
Oh, yeah.
That's the very first thing that comes up. Why is someone saying hi to me? I know you. You're on, you know, and you start talking about the show and social media. Oh, my God, you know, I saw this post, so I got on your show. It's great. Shook my hand. He goes, hey, keep it up. I love it. And I text you right away. I'm like, hey, your story just happened to me. And it's weird. I mean, it's odd
off-putting
feeling. Yeah.
So I had that with the Jubilee video, right? So I had that did very well on TikTok. Like TikTok, some of them are like 20 plus million. Mm-hmm. I was out on my job, my day job, which I'm out on a main road, and people were stopping. It's like, hey, you're the guy from Jubilee. And it got very uncomfortable, extraordinarily uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. So again, the glasses come in, but in the gym, I don't wear my glasses. Right. So that's the problem. That's the problem. And unfortunately, the first time it happened to me, my son was with me. And somebody comes up, they saw Soft White Underbelly. And he comes up and he's like, hey, I was just watching you on Soft White Underbelly. And my son's behind him. He can't see him. And my son's making fun of me. I'm like, you little jerk off. You know, he's making fun of me. Mm-hmm. And 2 minutes into the guy talking to me, he's like, hey, Dad, can we work out now? You done being famous? You want to sign an autograph? And you want to talk about being humbled. Ooh, man, that'll bring you right down. But I never feel comfortable ever. I don't think it's something I will never, ever get used to. But one of the things I want to talk about is the hard work. When you first got into this, aside from our conversation, what was your expectation of the workload? The key component to any law enforcement officer being the best version of themselves is through education. Sherry Alsop is a leader in providing that education to police agencies, preparing them for the all too frequent dealings with sexual assault victims.
You've seen Sherry on episode 169 of the Suffering Podcast. She survived incest and almost daily sexual assault, so she comes from a place of experience and true understanding.
Sherry has the intelligence, commitment, and compassion to open the eyes of those on the front lines, while providing the tools to effectively deal with a difficult situation. Sherry's instruction comes from experience and multiple certifications.
Training with Sherry will offer on-site training, customized schedules, specialized instruction tailored from a victim's perspective.
You are going to hear Sherry's heart-wrenching but inspiring survivor story. Learn proprietary trauma-informed training techniques, uncovered victim-centered interview methods while earning continuing education credits according to your state guidelines. To be the best, you must learn from the best. Let Sherry also guide you through the delicate cases of sexual assault from a victim's point of view.
Be a source of comfort to those victims affected by these traumatic experiences while producing a solid investigation and uncovering details that often go unnoticed.
To find out more or to contact Sherry Alsop, go to sherryalsop.com. That's SherryAllsup.com.
Not a lot. When we first started talking about it, I said, oh, once a week, I could do this. No big deal. Get in front of a computer, do an interview, good. Then you start, A, realizing how much is involved. B, taking pride in it.
That's the big one.
I don't want it to just be okay. Yeah. I want it to be good. So then you start putting more into it. And then I started watching even more other shows. How are they done? What are they talking about? How are they talking about it? You know, so you start doing even more research even after you start doing the show to better yourself. And then you realize, again, just to back this up so you have a little context to it. When I was in JTTF for 17 years, I wasn't allowed to have any social media. So I was 10 years behind the social media push. I had no idea how to use Facebook. LinkedIn, I had no idea what that even was. Instagram, none of that. I had no working knowledge of how any of that worked because I never used it. Then knowing I had to get on because of the show and learn, thank God my kids are who they are, to sit next to me, a grown man, like, all right, how do you do this? And walking me through it. And then learning that whole aspect and how important that is to get the show, your message, guests, all that out there, and having to become not an expert, but very good at it to make it work for what it is. That was a lot of work too.
That's because social media is a scam. You understand this, right?
Oh,
So
yeah.
you'll have one post that hits, right? You'll have one post that hits, and then you'll spend 6 months after that figuring out what you did on that post to make it hit.
Yeah.
Right? That's
Right.
you're trying to break the algorithm.
Yep. And it could be a word.
Uh-huh.
It could be, any of that. And I, experience that now with shows, and you look at one post and it's this and that, and you kind of word it the same way because it worked.
Yeah.
So you just kind of copy it.
There is no replication.
And there's none.
A friend of mine calls it the social media lottery. They'll do
Yeah.
that every so often to keep you on the hook.
Sure. Absolutely right.
And it makes sense. It does make sense.
Yep.
The workload it's never off. If you take true pride in something, like you said, it's never off the cuff. I can sit here and have a conversation with you, but I've thought about it. I know what I want to talk to you. Now that conversation, just like interview and interrogate, that conversation may take a
Sure.
right or a left, but you always got to keep on your mission, and you got, maybe you have to bring it back and realign it. Have you ever had a guest just go off the rails?
Oh God, yeah. We had one early, not too early, but early on in season 1, that the show was like 2 hours of just rambling, and you sit there, you don't want to be.
It wasn't episode 50, was it?
No, it wasn't.
Okay.
Episode 50 was pretty good. It was 2 guys that we had on were
Knuckleheads.
Were pretty good.
Yeah.
And we didn't release it right away because I'm like, we can't put this out. No one's going to listen to this, first of all. And then we got to a point where we're like, all right, we have it. We have to do this. And back then, my daughter was doing the editing because we were only on audio at the time. And she had a whole working knowledge how to do that. So that helped. Me and her sat in her room for like 2 or 3 hours and edited the ever-loving hell out of that thing to a point where it was like, all right, now we can at least just put it out.
We had an episode in here. Now, when you got it on video, I actually miss audio and some of the freedoms you had in audio, because you could sit there and, let's say I was very inarticulate in the way that I spoke. With audio, you can actually clean it up. You can take out the ums and the ahs. And if you're good at it, it becomes like the Matrix. On video, it's a little tougher.
Mm-hmm.
So we had something in here, and thankfully I have a good producer, Andrew Santiago. He cleaned this episode. I remember after we recorded it, we're all sitting there. We're sitting there in the control room going, son of a bitch, what the hell do we do? I can't air this.
Right.
I can't air this. And Andrew did some magic on it where it made it very palatable. And it was actually a decent episode and did very well. That's because I've been with Andrew for a very long time, and Andrew put in a ton of work on that one. So video's a little tougher.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, video is where you get the majority of your views. It's easy to do that stuff. So you made the jump to video. What caused you to, or was it just a progression?
Yeah, it was always on our mind. And then we got, like we have our Andrew, which is Ovette. We get a producer and an editor. So that helped with progressing the way we wanted to. We didn't go to video right away because we didn't know what we had. We didn't want to, why do all that work that something might last a month? So we started going on doing videos July of our first. So about 7 months into our first season, we said, okay, I think we're ready. And let me tell you, man, I was nervous as hell doing that first show. It was with Jonathan Hatami, who's a district attorney out in LA, who did this child death case that was it was a Netflix show, heartbreaking. But that show was a little different because it's, you know, you always had each other up on the screen when we did the audio,
Yeah, but it didn't matter what you look
but
like.
it didn't matter.
Mike and I did this show in Florida called MSCS Media. And the guy who runs it is a guy named Tommy. And I'm in the bathroom right before the show. And it's one of those long 4 months. I think it was 3.5 hours, which is exhausting. But I'm watching the guy put on makeup. I'm like, what are you doing? What are you doing? He goes, cameras will fuck with you. He's right. He's right. Cameras will fuck with you a little bit. Now, listen, I don't put on makeup. I would look much better if I did put on makeup. So I didn't go that extreme. But I can see how that would happen.
Oh yeah, because listen, it all goes again what I said before. If you have something that's working, you want it to be better. You want to just make it better. And then if you're watching like I did, you go on other shows to get ideas, not to take ideas, but to kind of, oh, I like that. I like how they did that.
Every studio you've ever been in to be a guest on a show, I guarantee you looked around at their setup.
100%. I do it.
Where's the lighting? Where's this?
I look at lightings. I look at thumbnails. I look at, all right, what more? I like that. And just take ideas, from that. And I think that's a smart thing to do because, this is like you said, there's so many people that are so talented and have such a grasp of this. Why not tap into that?
Absolutely. It's not looking for replication.
No.
It's looking for inspiration.
Absolutely right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the average show lasts 2 to 7 episodes. If you're lucky, 2 to 7. And if the next statistic is if it goes past 7, it usually ends around 20, 22.
Yep.
I am not built that way. Like when I start something, I don't give a shit. I'm just going. And why do you think shows end so quick?
They run out of things to talk about. And I think the most thing, they run out of things to talk about. And if it's a guest blatant show, they just run out of guests. They just, the topic dries up. True crime is a hard topic because there's a billion shows. So it's keeping it fresh and keeping your audience engaged. And I think shows dry up because people just run out of ideas. And it's not for lack of preparation. Probably everyone goes into it with, I can do this, which is the right attitude. But sometimes you just get overcome with it. And, you can see, listen, the most nervous part of my year is after season 1, after season 2, in around November, because I got to do this again. Like, all right, we just had a successful 11 months. I got to do it again. So
most people will take they'll do a season run 6 months and then they'll take 6 months off. I don't subscribe to that because listen, we just had 2 weeks off and I was rusty as hell when I came in here and did the opening read. Usually I can bang out the opening read in 2 minutes, you know? But I'm rusty. So I can't imagine taking 6 months off.
There's no way I could. I mean, we just talked about it. We take, the holidays off right around Christmas, New Year's, and we usually start the first week or the first few days after New Year's, depending on when it falls. And by about 3 or 4 days before then, I'm like anxious as hell. Like, we got to do this again. And we've only been off for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
We had enough shows. We kind of doubled up on shows
you
in
stack.
like November. Right.
Yeah.
So they're out, but we're just not recording them. And like you said, you get rusty. You get used to a just rhythm during the season. And then when that has any kind of break, it takes a show or two to get back into it.
So that is why, you don't know this, but that is why I chose you very strategically to come in here for the first recording of this year. All right. I knew you've been doing this a while. You're pro. You know what you're doing. We have a personal relationship. So there's no get to know me type of stuff. I did that very purposely because I knew I was going to be rusty. I've gone through this this is season 5. I've gone through this 4 other years. So I know what happens with that stuff. And that was unlike everything else I've done in prior years. I've never done it like that before, but I've learned enough to say, hey, listen, I got to bring in somebody I'm really comfortable with in order to get this done. So that's one of the reasons why I was very happy to say that you picked that first recording date of 2025.
Well, thank you for that.
Yeah. So you have a lot of high profile guests. So you just had Taya Kyle on, and I found it's not that I dislike talking to people of high profile. I don't. I do. I enjoy talking to them. And I talk to them the same way you and I are talking. But I always found that their episodes fall below expectations. And there's a reason for that. I found this very early on. We had, and this is not a knock on him because he's a very good friend, Lee Rusan, who's played for the Giants in the 80s. And Lee's a great guy. He's a good friend. But Lee's episode did crap. I was like, what the hell? You know, he's a pro football player. This should be a decent grab. But I realized something. They've always had somebody promoting for them. They've never had to do self-promotion. And that's all podcast is. It's self-promotion.
Right.
So it's not that I've shied away from that. You know, if somebody wants to come in, absolutely, let's come in. But it has, and that's why so when people come in here, I make them sign an image release, a media release, and I have them also sign a social media agreement, which means you're going to share this on social media. That's all I ask. Because people weren't sharing it.
Right.
And I imagine it's for the same reason that I didn't share the show in the very beginning. Maybe they're embarrassed. Maybe they don't want to. I don't know. Have you come across this?
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. And you'll get once the show's done, I'll do this for you. I'll do this for you. And they don't, you know, and I don't take it personally. I'm like, all right, it's a thing, you know, whatever's going through their head. Listen, some are really busy and forget and never even listen to their own episodes. But yeah, that's definitely happened.
But people of high profile, especially people with high profile on social media, they share it once. That's really all they need to do.
Absolutely.
And sometimes that doesn't happen.
Yeah,
So,
I know.
Or they wait, or, you know, they try to do that whole strategic airing thing. And I'm like, come on, man, help me out, dude. Help me out.
Just one.
Yeah. So what do you think is the most difficult part about podcasting?
The stories and the guests and keeping it fresh and I'll do the bookings and figure out what guests we have. And I do a lot of, okay, I'll know who I'm going to book for a month. Who do I want first? Who do I want following that show? I do a lot of that. I don't just, okay, I got 4 people, throw them in these 4 weeks. I do a lot of, you know, all right, this one will be good following this, you know, and I may have 2, you know, CIA operatives on and record them back to back, but I'm not going to release them back to back, which is great, you know. And Ovette, our producer, and Taylor, you know, our graphic designer, is so good at, hey, we're not going to do this one this week. Let's skip down to this one. You know, can you do the thumbnail for this? Can we put this? Okay, cool. Because they're getting it too. Like, we want to make it just fresh every week. And I think that becomes a good challenge, I say, because it's fun to me. And then just like I just said, who's next?
So how far do you book in advance?
We're booked right now. I'm starting April right now.
So if somebody is traveling, I will book them fairly far in advance. But I try my best. There's a butter zone here. I try not to book any further than 2 months out because they forget, things get in the way. And I don't like, if I book a guest, I say, yeah, I'll send you all the information as it gets closer, because I don't want to send them the address.
Oh, I do the same thing.
I don't want to send them the address. I don't want to send them anything because they're going to lose it. I'm going to have to send it again. So why do double work?
Right.
If I go further, and I've done this, I've made this error. If I go further than 2 months, things get in the way. It never ends up good.
Yeah. So far, so good. But like you just said, I won't send someone a link until a day or two before.
Yeah.
That's for sure, because that has happened.
I know the game with that one. And like, if I'm a guest on a remote podcast, I'm like, send me the link. Well, I'll send it to you tomorrow I'm like, fuck. And I know what they're doing. Like, I get it. I understand it. I'm like, because I like to set everything up, you know?
Yep.
But I'm a strange, people with personalities like ours are not the norm.
Mhm.
They're usually last minute type of people.
Yeah.
They'll come on, they got their hair's all messed up and stuff. That's, Have you ever had, well, so then there's the other problem that you have with guests is cancellations.
Yeah.
Last minute cancellations, which is the worst.
Yeah. Last minute ones. A couple, which, yeah, that stinks, but again, I try to be, because of probably what I did for a living, Kevin, and you did, I get that just shit happens, that's unavoidable. I don't like, one guy did this, which, oh, I got a cold. All right. And
you're remote. It's not like we're face to face.
And, and I'll tell them all the time, listen, I get, you're not feeling great. We'll just do an audio. I have no problem with that. Like if we do, we will always do both. We'll do the release of video and audio. But I said, if something happens anywhere in your house with the way you're feeling, I'll just put an audio show out that week. I'm fine with that.
I think a lot of people are like, I'm very respectful of people's time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like, if I told you 7:00 tonight, right? Well, at 6:45, I'm ready waiting for you. You happen to show up at 6:30 and throw me for a loop. But that's the way that I am. I'm always prepared because I'm respectful of your time. And I expect that. Maybe my expectations are a little high. I expect that in return. When Mike and and it's much better when you're in a studio. I will tell you that. It does make things easier because they know you're paying for studio time. Sure. They get that. When we were on audio, we would have more cancellations. One guy canceled out an hour before we were going to record.
Yeah, that's bad. That I haven't had, which is good.
He forgot he was going down the shore with his family. Yeah. That one bothered me. And here's the funny thing. So that was way long ago. And he's a prominent guy. I'll tell you off air. He recently reached out to me because he's a friend of a friend. Reached out to me and said, hey, listen, if you're looking for a guest, I'm coming. Well, I told him, I said, well, we did have you scheduled and you chose to, oh yeah, I didn't know. And I'm still debating on whether I'm going to have him on again. Yeah. I don't know. When I get a bad taste in my mouth and I've trusted, like I said this before on a show, when I'm booking a guest and as time moves on, I just get a bad feeling in my stomach. Usually that feeling's right. Actually, the only one that surprised me was Mike Dowd. I could have sworn Mike Dowd was going to cancel out. We were only on audio, and sucker surprised me and showed up.
You know what? And I'll tell you the opposite with me. There's been guests that I've booked, and then it gets closer, and you're like, I don't know how this is going to go. I don't know if this is all right. We're going to do it because it's scheduled, and I'm sure as hell not going to cancel. And you do it, and it's great.
Yeah.
And you're like, wow, I didn't expect that. Or we'll record it, put it together, and I'm like, all right, it's a good show. And then the number's like, holy God.
So you get those sleeper hits, right?
Oh, yeah.
I've had people in here, and I'm sitting here talking, and I'm banging my head up against the wall going, what the fuck are you saying? What are you talking about? And every time, not every time, but a lot of the times when I walk out of here saying, that show's okay, it always surprises me with the numbers.
Yep.
I don't know. Maybe people show up to see the train wreck. I don't know.
Yeah, but it's that NASCAR feeling. Watching until you're waiting for something to crash. But yeah, I've had that for sure. An opposite effect.
The Suffering Podcast welcomes our newest sponsor, Keto Revive. Ketamine infusions that are personalized, accessible, and holistic. Proven treatments for post-traumatic stress, depression, anxiety, chronic pain, neuropathic pain, and so much more. Keto Revive is physician operated with customized treatments tailored to you and an outstanding support system. Keto Revive offers first responder special discounts. So try something new, proven treatments, located in Wyckoff, New Jersey. To find out more, visit Keto Revive at ketorevive.com. Let's start healing today. So you have an issue that I wish I still had, which is you have a partner, Dan Murphy. Dan, I've spoken to Dan. Dan's a great guy. You're in a marriage. Mm-hmm. You're in a marriage with this person. And just like any marriage, there will be turmoil. Mm-hmm. Mike and I certainly had our turmoil throughout things, but we always showed up and we were always professional on camera. And then we worked on whatever it was behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
Has that come across with you and Dan?
You know what? We've had talks, not butting heads, not.
I can't see Dan getting mad, by the way. I just can't see him getting mad. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
All
Yeah.
right.
That's basically that's the conversation. Hey, let's try this. Let's do this. Let's make sure we don't do this. Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Okay.
That's kind of the extent of it, but you're so right. And it is a challenge to have a partner, because not the challenge of friendships, a challenge of a business relationship and a performance relationship.
You have a mindset, and I don't know whether you make the same mistake I make, that everybody else should have the same mindset I have.
Oh yeah.
And that's not,
when I get yelled at by Ange.
That's not reality.
Right.
And it took me a long time. There was things that Mike did and there was things that Mike didn't do. And I decided a long time ago, it's either, a friend of mine brought it to my attention. He's like, he is who he is. He's never going to change.
Mhm.
It's either you got to accept it or you don't. You have a choice. I chose to accept it. And I was, and when I accepted it, that was fine.
Mhm.
I was happy with that. But there's always friction. There's always stuff going on behind the scenes. You're two separate people, two separate personalities with two separate problems.
Oh yeah. And you know what, and Ange, like I said, she would remind me all the time. I'm very, just the way I'm wired. We're recording a show at 11 a.m. I am on, mic set up, lighting at 10:30, sitting there in front of my computer. Now I'll look at my phone. I'll
you play around on your phone. Sure.
Right, but I'll be there. And if I'm waiting too long, you get antsy and whatever happens. And then I'll have a conversation with Anne. She'll go, not everyone's you. Not everyone's like you. Stop thinking everyone's going to think the same way as you.
Mm-hmm.
And, after a couple of times it sinks in and you realize that. And that's part of the relationship. And the cadence of the show took a little bit of you go, I go, you go, I go, not talking over one another, which is the other thing about audio and video. Audio, you get away with that a little bit, because it sounds okay if I cut you off for a second or whatever. Video, it's hard. And it's more editing and it's more adjusting and all that.
If you're doing this for as long as you did, like I knew, even on audio, I knew how to edit Mike. I knew when he was going to say, I knew when he was going to cough. Like I knew all that stuff. And so with video, it took us, I don't know, 5 or 10 episodes to figure out our cadence on video.
Right.
We were very, we knew how each other worked. But I can see when you're about to talk, and that's the value of being in front of you. I can see when you're about to talk. I can see when you got a thought in your head that you want to say something. Okay, I can stop.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you get somebody in here that's never done a podcast before, who's just just in the middle of a conversation, they will cut you off. And then all of a sudden, you're trying to pull clips. You're like, son of a bitch.
Right.
Son of a bitch.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that was Dan and I. We got to a point where you could read each other, his eyes, or even just sitting there, like leaning in a little, that, all right, he has something, a good question or a good statement or whatever it might be. And then we would talk after the show and he would say the same thing about me. Like, I knew you were going to ask that question, so that's why I didn't say anything. When you get into that rhythm, it's good at the end of the show because it's going well.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a natural thing. Like yours, Kev, and here, we don't have a script. So everything's just 3 or 4 people sitting around a bar talking is basically what it's like. And that has its challenges as well, because some of our shows get very deep, very emotional, some of the cases that we have. And there's times that we don't know what to say. When we hear a story about like Harmony Montgomery, who's a little girl who got killed by her father in New Hampshire, and the chief who ran that investigation, that was a heartbreaking case to do. And there's times during that there's pauses because you're like, what are we asking?
So there's been times I've been tripped up and hear Amanda Amanda Coleman, her story is horrific. Sherry Alsop, her story is horrific. Clark Fredericks, his story is absolutely horrific. And there's been times where you're like, sorry,
Right.
you know, like what am I going to say? I there's nothing I can say to balance that out.
Absolutely.
So it becomes very hard.
Yeah, I mean, Kathy Kleiner, Rubin, who's a victim of Ted Bundy, she tells the story of surviving that. I was
she
like,
the one with the bite marks?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
I remember because that's how they got his dental records,
Yeah.
and that's ultimately how they caught him.
And just listening to her story and then trying to come up with a question.
Yeah.
How'd you feel? Yeah. Right.
Did it hurt?
Right. How was it having this guy maniac and 5 seconds away from killing you? It's hard to do, but that is the best challenge of doing these shows is what to ask, what information you want to get out of this person,
When to ask it.
absolutely, and when not to.
Yeah.
And you just brought up Taya Kyle, who was a unbelievable guest and a great show. But here's the funny thing about why that show I think was successful. We never brought up Chris's death.
Well, everybody knows that.
Well, that was why we didn't want to do it. We started down the road, and that's the experience of having a lot of shows under your belt. You get to know where the guest is kind of going. And the conversation and interview was going so well, and it wasn't being brought up. And then towards the end of the show, Taya brought it up. So even after her bringing up what happened, we still didn't go into it.
See, when I have a guest on here, especially somebody who's gone through something horrific like that, I want them to leave this studio going, I was never asked some of those questions, and that's I want them to be refreshed about it. I don't want them to say, "Oh man, that just didn't." Same old shit.
Right.
Here you go.
Right.
And I've had guests in here where they're selling, they're not telling because they've told their story in such a manner so many times it becomes very rote to them, and there's no feeling behind it.
Right.
I've had it in here, and it's never a good show.
No.
So Gold Shields started, and with everything, there is an end. How long, number one, can you handle this? And how long do you project at this show before you either run out of material or shift gears or something of that nature? It's going to happen. Like I always say it all the time. It's going to happen.
Yep.
I don't want it to happen. I don't wish it to happen. I do everything I can to make sure it doesn't happen, but it will happen.
Right. It's just like retiring from the NYPD. You love what you're doing at year 10, at year 20. And you're on a roll in a great detail or whatever, but at some point it's going to end. When it comes to Gold Shields, I don't, Dan and I have never talked about, all right, how long are we doing this? We just haven't had that conversation. So listen, as long as we're not heavy on numbers, do we look at them? Yes, because it's part of what we do.
Mm-hmm.
As long as they're going in the right direction and new people are still popping up, and I can still get the guests that we're getting and the stories that are out there, well, I'll keep doing it, and then, like you said, at one point, we're going to go, oh, crap, what are we doing next week? Or what are we doing next month or whatever? And, that's when it gets reevaluated and you check yourself. You don't want to put the last thing I'm going to do and the last thing, Dan and I will both agree on. We're not just going to do a show for the sake of doing it. Like, oh my God, we can't stop. No, you want the quality of what we're doing because you owe that. I believe you have so many followers and so many subscribers. And I don't want to use the term fans, but you know what I mean. You owe it to them to give them a continual good product.
You don't want to jump the shark.
Right.
Right. And for those of you who don't know what Jump the Shark is, I'm dating myself a little bit. Happy Days was one of the most popular shows, and one time they went out to Hawaii, and Fonzie, in his leather jacket,
California.
Was it California?
Yeah.
In his leather jacket, on water skis, jumped over a shark that was in the water, and it's been commonly referred to as Jump the Shark because that's when Happy Days started to no longer be Happy Days. It was kind of like a joke.
Yes.
And that's what I always fear. I want to make sure that I'm putting out quality stuff. I want to make sure that it's things that people want to hear. But you do something that I'm very proud that you do. And I think I don't know if I told you this, but I certainly have told Tom Flynn in the control room, build your own personal brand because you saw what happened leaving police work, right? And this is something that Mike never got. and I tried to impress it upon him, but it fell on deaf ears. Build your own personal brand in tandem with the show, because what's good for you is going to be good for the show. And one day, when that show falls and that show ends, you still have your personal brand and all the other stuff that you're doing, your Nancy Grace, your Newsmax stuff. And that stuff will always be there. And you'll be former host of the Gold Shield show, which was a great event, and it ran its course, just like Suffering Podcast ran its course, but Kevin Donaldson still exists. When we left police work, and the way I left wasn't my favorite way to go, but one day I went to work and the next day I didn't go. And I was just left out in this barren desert, no preparation, no nothing. I refused to let that happen to me again. Right. So kudos to you, because that is, I watch you doing that. I watch you actively doing that. And I think it's a very, very smart move.
Yeah. But Kev, here, again, you told me that. The reason I do that is because the conversation we had almost 2 years ago. And I don't say that lightly. That is one of the pieces of advice you told me. Listen, make sure you make Tom Smith and, who is from Gold Shields.
That's how I put it to you. I remember now.
You had said that. And that's why, I do as much as I can with Law and Crime and Nancy, and all that. And I'm blessed to be asked to do those, to be on other podcasts, and not even just tell my career, to help someone in law enforcement or what I went through, but share some of the stories that we've had on Gold Shields of sacrifice, of, survival, of, both military, police, and just victims, and to get that out. So those people, it's not just cross promoting other podcasts, promote your guests.
Yeah.
Promote your guests of what they have done to get them more exposed out there, so more people know about their story.
And then you'll run across people who, how do I say this? How do I say this and be diplomatic? So a like on a post means a lot. Okay, it means a lot. And every one of my friends who I support, I always it takes 2 seconds. You hit a like on Instagram or whatever, because that means a lot to me. So I give that back to them. And those people, there are certain people, you included, that show up to support. That's all you want, is to show up and support. But eventually what happens is there will be this person who you have been supporting who is not supporting you back. And you're like, well, what am I doing here? Well, listen, if it's going to be a one-way relationship, I'm not going to be involved in this. And I've done that. I have done that. Listen, there's no harsh words. There's nothing like that. But I said, okay, well, listen, if that's the way that it is, I try to lift all boats. Yep. I'm not just lifting you. We lift each other. Right. So where do you think Gold Shields is going to go? If you had a crystal ball.
If I had a crystal ball, I think, I would love to just expand it more. I mean, we always want more. And more.
What's expansion look like in the podcasting world?
Nowadays, everyone's doing it. So it's, it's different, either networks. Like we have, here's a perfect example. A couple of weeks ago, got a contact from Coming Home Well, streaming radio station, who loved Gold Shields, loved what we do. And now we're on their streaming radio show.
Very nice.
Every week, Wednesdays, 9:00.
And it's no extra work for you. It's just you give them.
No, we just jump. It's an audio. They do the audios, and the setup they have is amazing. They got their own app. They got all this. They play country music and music throughout the day. Twice a day, drop podcasts that are part of their new network, and they asked us to be part of that. Very nice. What an honor! I mean, now we have an entire different fan base. Entirely different followers that probably, maybe, I shouldn't say, maybe not didn't know us before, and now will. So in the next couple of weeks, after a few shows get out there, that's going to be interesting to see what that does.
See if the numbers come back around. Yeah. Because if somebody likes an audio, they're going to watch.
Right.
And then you get double. That's why the way I release them, I always release the audio first, because if you like the audio, you're going to watch as well. So then you get a double view.
Right.
That's the theory behind it.
Yep.
Well, listen, we are coming to the end of this thing here. So let's throw out some plugs. Of course, Gold Shield Show. Let's throw out some plugs.
TheGoldShieldShow.com, YouTube.com/@GoldShields, and every audio channel you can think of. There's some that we don't even know we're on, which is funny when you get that email.
Well, you use your publishing site as Buzzsprout?
Yes.
All right. So Buzzsprout has the one thing where you subscribe to like 100 different podcasting platforms. Same with me. I couldn't tell you everything.
No, not at all. It's funny when you get, you hit this amount. Okay, great. It's just people like you who helped us out in the beginning of this. I owe a lot to, and where we're at is because of people like you. And again, Kev, me and you are tight already. So this isn't like a, let's be friends thing. Your guidance got us in the position where we're at, because without that, I don't have a game plan, and then when we look at numbers and I see that we're in 73 different countries and 3,500 cities, whatever it might be, I always look back at that conversation we had.
So oddly enough, there's a lot of play for us in Australia. How? I have no clue.
Yeah.
But I'll get these occasional messages through social media from Australia. I'm like, what the hell? And I almost want to ask them, how the hell did you find us in Australia?
Right.
But that's the weird thing. So now all of a sudden you're international.
Oh, it is. Yeah. There was a time in the middle of last year, we were like number 5 in Spain. You get that random email, congratulations, it did this. But then just to pivot a little bit, you talk about doing other shows and promoting yourself out there. I did a show, Rise Above with Kevin Lanning.
Yes, I saw your post on it.
Okay. His show the show I did with him went to number 2 worldwide on Apple. So that's what you mean by, without reaching out to him in the cross promotion of each, I'm not on his show, and have the opportunity to do that and do it for him. I don't care. It's great. We get a couple of followers because I talk about Gold Shields, but I was happy to do that for him. And that's what.
But it also builds your personal brand. Your personal brand will translate back to the Gold Shield Show.
Right.
And everybody wins.
Everyone
wins. That's the great thing about it.
Right.
So, Tom, I appreciate you coming in here.
Oh.
I appreciate you coming in here. One final thing. There's more suffering than people realize in doing podcasts.
Oh, God.
There is way more suffering than people. This is not as easy as just turning on the cameras and talking into a microphone. There's some struggles in this. So throughout this journey of your podcasting career, your second career, what do you think it's taught you?
Patience and continuing hard work, without a doubt. I look at the podcast. I look at Gold Shields. I work on Gold Shields the same way I worked when I was a detective. Put 100% in, get 100%. If you put 50 in, you're going to get 50, maybe even less. So that's why I am up in my room. I take that break from a ball game and do something, because I think the ideas I have will translate to something good. So let me get it out there. And you're going to get what you put into it. It is a lot of work. It's every day, emails, posts, reaching out to people, all that. But you're going to get what you put into it. Herb Brooks once said on the USA Olympic team in 1980, when he was cutting down his team, if you give me 99%, you're going to make my job real easy. Give 100, you'll know where you are.
Mm-hmm. That's what I know. I know that from Herb Brooks. I've watched Miracle quite a bit, but it's amazing. So yes, you do get out of it exactly what you put into it. And if you think it's easy, give it a shot.
Yeah,
give it a shot. Join one of the 5 million podcasts in the globe right now and see where you end up. But there are some in there that are in it for the long haul. I'm pretty sure Gold Shields is in it for the long haul. And I'm happy to be a part of it in some small fashion, and I'm happy to have you as a friend. So I really appreciate you.
I'm proud of us. I'm proud of our friendship. I treasure it. I really do. We talk a lot. And thank you for this opportunity and every opportunity you paved for me.
Well, appreciate you. And we're always looking for what Gold Shield's going to do next.
Yes.
And that's going to do it for this episode of The Suffering Podcast, The Suffering of Podcasting with Tom Smith. And let's think about all the stuff that we learned. Always give your knowledge to another because you can't take it with you. Okay is not okay. Take some pride in what you do. There is a method to the madness. You get out of it what you put into it. But most importantly, find a passion even when another passion ends. And that's going to do it for this episode. Don't forget to go to popple.com, put in the code TSP20 for a 20% discount on your digital business card. Follow us on all social media. That's Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, our Shadow Band account on Clapper, and of course, OnlyFans. Follow me at Real Kevin Donaldson, and of course, follow the Suffering Podcast. We'll see you on the next episode.